Hello there, this is Arielle Dance coming to you again. I know it's been a while since my last video, but you know, a lot of things have changed. Since my last video, I have clearly cut off all my hair, but I also graduated, got my master's in a specialized sociology program focusing in women's health. And also I have just returned from France, well, recently returned from France, where I participated in the World Congress on Endometriosis, and there I presented on endometriosis and relationships, and how relationships are impacted by the disease, and how the journey of endometriosis is not solely only on the sufferer, but also on her partner, also on her family, on her loved ones, her caregiver, and even kind of how the provider plays a role. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, and how endometriosis can be a joint journey, and how the impact of the disease can really impact family, be it financial, be it family planning, family growth. So let's just talk about that a little bit. I looked at it also from the perspective, let's start with the caregiver. Caregiver being a parent or a spouse who is the one solely responsible for taking care of the patient post-surgery, and just really the one responsible for kind of taking the beating. We know that endometriosis comes with a hormonal aspect, and there's always someone who will kind of unfortunately bear the brunt. Sorry. And so when we're going through hormonal changes, we may lash out on someone that we love dearly, and it's not intentional at all, but oftentimes it does happen. And so that person, it can impact them emotionally and spiritually, and this research really wants to look at, you know, what does that feel like for them. And a lot of caregivers talk about resentment towards the patient, and still loving them and still being willing to care for them, but still feeling hurt and pain and anger of not being able to help them and not being able to make them feel better or fix what's going on. And that kind of leads into, how does the partner feel, the spouse, I try to avoid, this is personal, I try to avoid using boyfriend or husband, because I recognize that people have different types of partnerships, so I will use the word partner or spouse, loved one, but you know, take it as you may, husband, wife, etc. So looking at it from the partner's perspective, and understanding that, for example, if you're in a heterosexual relationship and intercourse is a big part of your sexual relationship, painful intercourse is a big part of endometriosis for a lot of women. And so not being willing or able to engage sexually with your partner is a big issue for a lot of couples, and very painful and very frustrating for the partner, and very frustrating for also the patient, but very frustrating for the partner. And then that also can lead to, well, now I'm ready to plan a family. And you can't really always plan a family when you can't always have sex. And then that also leads to the infertility aspect of endometriosis, and it's frustrating also again for the partner, because you can't, again, family growth is not always possible. So this is painful sex and infertility, which are both aspects of endometriosis, which don't only affect the woman with endometriosis, but her partner as well, who may have wanted children, who also may want to have sex. So these two aspects definitely do impact not only the woman, but her partner as well. So this journey is joint. We looked at, and so I kind of just touched on this, but just want to kind of, I guess this is more so for researchers and providers, to be a little bit more open-minded when we're doing our research, that all women who have endometriosis do not only have relationships with men and male partners. When I was at the conference in France, a presenter from Brazil was presenting, and on his questionnaire he said some questions about, you know, how painful sex was related to the patient, and he asks her questions about her partner's penis being too big for her vagina, or her partner's penis causing pain during intercourse. And I of course, being the rebellious 20-something-year-old I am, I stand up and I say, "Excuse me, sir, what do you do when a patient can't relate to those questions?" So let's say the woman has never had sex with a man, but she's had lots of sex with women, and it's still painful for her. She can't answer those questions. She may skip those questions, and then your research is flawed. One, because you're asking the wrong questions, and you have to really be considerate to the woman, to the patient, and consider different ways to ask your questions. So I urge providers and researchers to be a little bit more aware and a little bit more flexible in how we are forming our questions and how we're molding our research ideas for our patients and women with endometriosis. Don't assume because this disease is heavily surrounded by issues of sex and infertility that only heterosexual women are concerned with issues of sex and infertility. And so that's something that I brought up in my research, and also something that I plan to go further into. I would love to get more information, because when you look at, if you just do a soft literature search, there's not a lot of information on the non-heterosexual woman's perspective of this disease. And so I'm really planning to look more into that. Another relationship that I'd like us to look at is relationships in support groups. And so there's a, I don't know if it's a pandemic or what we want to call it, but there's a high volume of women using online support groups, which is great, just to find comfort and answer questions and just really lean on someone who understands what they're going through. And the unfortunate part of it sometimes may be that these women are asking highly medical questions to each other and not necessarily giving the best advice to one another. And I think the best advice that can be given within those situations is go ask your doctor, because unfortunately all the necessary questions can't be answered. But if you observe these relationships, and I would not advise anyone to observe these relationships unless you do have endometriosis, I really do urge you to get involved in support groups, because when you're having a really rough day and you're experiencing a great deal of pain, it's a great environment to be in. And it's really amazing to see the relationships that can form, and the sisterhood actually that has formed within these support groups, and just that feeling of camaraderie and the feeling of not being alone. And I think that's really important, especially with a disease that can often make you feel isolated. And so I think that relationship is a major aspect, and it's also understudied. And I think that, you know, eventually someone may want to look into how endometriosis plays into forming these endo sisters, and really the relationships. I've seen women from across the world come together on this like-minded issue, and unfortunately such pain has grouped them together, but really the strength that is formed is magical, and it's very inspiring. On that note, it's quite unfortunate, but also fortunate. We've had experiences within our support groups where we've had sisters who have attempted suicide or have harmed themselves because the pain of endometriosis just really is that bad. And for anyone who's not familiar with endometriosis, please look at some of my other videos to really understand that endometriosis, the pain of this disease, not just the physical, but also the emotional and the spiritual toll it takes on you, is detrimental. And so for a lot of women, if you're not grounded in something and you don't have a good support system, partner, family, caregiver, support groups, you may feel that you can't take it anymore. And so we've had instances where as a support group we'll gather together in prayer, quite magical, to pray for the endo sister who has fallen, to pray for the endo sister who has tried to take her life. And I really think this is something, and this is why I think providers just need to be a little bit more aware of how we're treating our patients, and if we're asking the right questions in terms of how are you coping, and who do you have in your support system, because this is a disease not just about pain, but also if you can't have children and your whole life you were like, I can't wait to be a mommy, it's really hard. It's really hard to deal with for some women, and you just can't take it. And so I think, you know, having a support system that doesn't just include, you know, family and friends, but also the right kind of providers, and that may have to include talk therapy, physical therapy, a number of different type of holistic care providers in order to better your health. So I guess those are the relationships that I really wanted to touch on today. And some of them are in my research and some of them are not. Some of them have grown after I went to France and will grow after as my research continues to grow. But I really wanted to share that with you. I realized that I had been absent for a while, but I really hope that this has been helpful to you. So continue to follow these videos and follow me on Twitter. I'm at @A_healthy dancer, and just continue to really pray and for the women who live with this disease, and just continue to be aware of everything that's going on with this disease and how it can really impact women. And it could be any woman. It could be you, it could be your sister, it could be your best friend, it could be the lady who's checking you out at the store. You just never know who this disease is touching. And so I really urge you just to become aware and stay aware, and really consider all the relationships in your life and how they impact your own health. So thank you so much, and I pray that you have a great day. Thanks.